Good morning. It's still a little dark out. I've got to get started with work early, and I'm staying on my deck because you can probably hear the rain in the gutter. But I've got my pretty Christmas tree behind me. So I am going to, and I'm going to let my dogs out. Sorry, bear with me. Come on, dogs. They don't usually get to be with me because I go walk, because it's hard to walk and talk with them. But there they are. Can you see them? Oh, nope. You can't see them, sorry. Okay, so enough of my personal situation. I am going to talk about Revelation chapter 3 today. And what struck out for me was a concept that was in the last letter to the Church of Laodicea. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but and I think this specific message to them, oh look, there you can see my Christmas tree behind me for those of you on video, a little bit at least. So is a message, so this message to Laodicea, and the title of my message today, Are You Living Lukewarm? Is also, I think, the higher or macro message that's threaded throughout maybe all of the letters. Like who, and then so in this letter, the Son of Man in John's vision kind of challenges the Church of Laodicea that, you've grown cold. Well, actually, you're not quite cold, but you're not warm either. You're lukewarm. You're not hot. You're not cold. It's this indifference. You're kind of letting yourself be a little bit spiritually lazy, or, not being all that you could be if you were really operating in faith and love and all that I came, to teach and to be. And boy, isn't that truth? And he was like, if you would just, get hot again, like you could be on the throne with me. And so, and not only, and just like I was on the throne with my Father, and there's a place for everybody on the throne. There's room. And as I thought about that, I even had a vision of a throne sitting like kind of on top of my head. And, if you've been following me a lot, and for those of you, if you haven't and you're new to me, I talk a lot about the ego, the survival brain, the executive brain, like these parts of our brain, depending on what's in charge, will determine our experience of life and the temperature of our life. And most of us like to be in our comfort zone, which that creates that lukewarm, average results in life. But to really live the way God wants us to live, we've got to get out of our comfort zone and get in line with him. And in this letter, it's even like, you think you're all good because you've got the houses, the cars, the money, the titles, and you have no idea how poor you are, how wretched you are. Like, this is not what makes a life rich, but you're so deceived by your worldly comforts. And then all that comes with it. He's like, I've got something more for you, but you gotta detach from these things. Doesn't mean you can't have them. It's an attachment to them. And the same with not just our things and our titles, but our relationships. Like the life that God has for us, this higher life on the throne, requires that you become detached. And most people don't want to do that. So then we stay average. And I'm also a student of the Enneagram, and I love to use it as a tool for the same reason, because it talks about levels of growth. And it's a lot of ego and shadow work and the things that keep us in average to below average health, emotional, spiritual, physical. Like, it keeps us there, and that's where most people are. And we're like, we convince ourselves to be content here because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety. We don't want to let go of our relationships. We don't want to challenge ourselves to get out of our comfort zone. We just want to stay in our comfort zone. But that's not where, in the Enneagram language, when you talk about getting over your deadly sins and your ego and getting into wise living, or you're who you truly are, that is the only way to get there. The only path, the growth path, is to get detached and detached from the ego, get the ego out of the driver's seat, get your attachment to certain relationships, certain things in your life that you do feel that clingy attachment to. That's not a healthy thing. And was Jesus's message here. How many times did he say, who are my brothers and sisters? Who, leave your mother and father. Let the dead bury the dead. You can't get to the throne, to your higher self, to who you truly are, your true self, and still hold on tightly to all of those things. So most of us, and it's okay, God, we have free will. God lets us live an average life, or even below average. We get to choose. But along with the choice to be all you can be, to be your true self, to experience what God has for us, to be in full alignment with Jesus and on the throne, you've got to let go. That is one of the choices. And that's where people are like, no. Or they'll let go of so much. I feel like that's where I am. I've let go of a few things, but I'm still holding on tight to others. So I might be just slightly above average, but only slightly. And that terminology, by the way, does not mean that I'm better than anybody. Quite the contrary. When you do a lot of this work, you realize there really is, that's not even a thing. Like that again is another ego, a lie of the ego, to be better than somebody else. Because as you detach, you realize that you're not really separate from other people. You're not separate from God. So to think of yourself in those terms as compared to other people, that's the ego talking. Part of this spiritual journey and getting onto the throne of God is to realize, and why there's so much room for everybody, is because we're not separate. We're not better than. We're not other than. We're all one. And there's nothing special about me. That's actually the work you've got to do, to realize that you're not special. You are special because you were loved by God, and every life matters, but nobody is special in the sense that, they are not human, like we all are capable and have the same potential and possibility. That's what I mean when I say that. Whether or not we choose to access that means that we also must choose to do the work of detachment and detaching from our ego too. And some of us have just a normal average ego that we're kind of attached to. Some of us have a super ego. If you've got a super ego and you're super attached to it, you might even be below average down here, operating in unhealth. But we all have, and the way the human being works, because life happens, we are in relationship to other people, it takes a lot of practice. And there are some days where I feel super detached from my ego, and other days where I get right back. It's not a linear or a one and done type experience that we have. But the more you practice, just like anything, the better you get at it. Not that you become a better human being, better than anybody else. Again, it's about, realizing that those things enslave you, they entrap you. Again, back to the letters of even salve and slave, same letters, different jumble. But most of us are a slave to our ego and our passions and our security and our fears, versus, because, even though it looks good over there and the people that have achieved a little bit higher level of detachment seem to be more content and more happy and more at peace and have more joy, like all of those things, and even live from a sense of abundance, because they realize the richness and wealth is not found in things and places and money. And ironically, they often attract more of that stuff into their life because they let go of it, because they're not attached to it. They can learn, just like Paul said, to be happy in any situation, be content, because that is not where happiness is found, or joy for those that are now on the throne. They realize that they are living from a different position, and they, in order to get to that point, they've had to move out of others. But most of us try to straddle the fence, which creates lukewarm living. What did one great writer, maybe it was Faulkner or somebody, that said, the life of quiet desperation? Maybe that was Hemingway. Sounds more Hemingway. Anyway, so are you living lukewarm, quiet desperation because you're afraid of what will happen if you let go, and you're being a slave to fear? There's a hymn there, I think, or maybe it's a pop Christian song. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a slave. Anyway, I'm not a singer. My daughter is, though. I have singers in my family, but that particular gift didn't land on me, so that's okay. I am a child of God, though. It says, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And when we can do that work and we can really get to that place, there's a seat on the throne. But we've got to move into our executive brain, our own kind of throne within ourselves, to live from this place and shed the ego, and put the ego down in its place, as a subject, not as the ruler. All right, that I think is enough for today. Enjoy the weather wherever you are, and I'll see you tomorrow with Revelation 4.